Alright, sound checky checky, sound checky checky. Sound check, sound check. Very nice. I always do the click twice, even though once will suffice, normally. I'm kind of awkwardly placed by this plant, but yeah. Anyway, so welcome to the 5th episode of the new season of the Decompression Chamber. I should stop saying new season, it's the 2nd season, but hey, it's still kind of fresh, so I'll just say how it is. But yeah, our opening quote is going to be from Marie-Louise von Franz, which is a Swiss philosopher, who was a Swiss philosopher. And the quote goes, "It's easy to be a naive idealist. It's easy to be a cynical realist. It's quite another thing to have no illusions and still hold the inner flame." Roll the intro.
Wanted to meet and my steamer's broke. Fuck the oblique, I'm peak of the soul. Peace never know what's about to occur, but my zen getting rolled at the turn of your words. Wanted to meet and my steamer's broke. Fuck the oblique, I'm peak of the soul. Peace never know what's about to occur, but my zen getting rolled at the turn of
Yeah, so I quite like that quote because I think there's a part of me that really enjoys the kind of idealism, the thing of what things could be or how things could be. Those thoughts aren't always grounded in reality, but sometimes, like, almost untethering yourself from that reality allows you to think in a freer way, or maybe think about things that you might not ordinarily think about. It's just one of those things. I mean, naturally, I feel like as someone who's very early in the early stages of my life, I feel like compared to a lot of people, I haven't been quite sanded down by time. And you see a lot of older people maybe, and they kind of seem staunch, set in their ways, because they've experienced so much, they've seen so much, they know the patterns of life and they know where it's going, and I guess there's something like secure about that. Everybody loves to be certain, me included. And so yeah, that cynicism, that kind of realism, as some people may put it, is tempting, because being certain about stuff makes you feel secure in what you know, secure in what you think. When in reality, the greatest philosophers would know that they really didn't know anything. We can understand the patterns of our life maybe and predict from that towards the future, but that doesn't always mean that life as we know it is always going to be the same. And maybe that's just my perspective from my age, but it is something that I think about, and I think that bit at the end about holding the inner flame, that's the bit that I'm trying to cultivate right now. I guess it's the fact that there is so much, like, there are so many rigid parts of life that you can't change. There are so many things that you can't affect, and there are also so many wonderful ideas that you could have, or possible futures, or fantasies, or things like that. But yeah, it's the inner flame that I think that's really valuable. What drives you at your core? What do you value so much that you're going to move past those obstacles, and you're going to, bring down those ideals, not bring down, but ground those ideals in reality, and how can you, like, bring them together to actually make meaningful progress in your life? That's something that I've had to think about a bit just recently. I mean, I've talked in my previous episodes about how I'm planning on kind of adjusting my lifestyle to make more meaningful progress in certain parts of my life, and I think part of that is really thinking about that inner flame of mine. Last episode with Jamal, we spoke a bit about motivators, and I think to properly understand what motivates you, it requires a lot of introspection. It requires a lot of thinking about what you spend time thinking about, what you want to spend your time doing, and how those relate to your goals, and how those goals relate to who you are. It all kind of folds in on itself, and I guess until you properly have a look at yourself and consider what's important to you, you're not going to have an informed kind of aim in the future. I mean, at the moment, there's a Spanish phrase which is poniéndose en marcha, which is kind of to say to put yourself into gear. As a metaphor for not being in neutral. You want to put yourself in a position to move, and that's kind of where I am now. Quite often I had this idea of how it was going to be when I came back, and progress isn't always as much progress as you expect. There's obstacles that you can't predict, and there's, for me, obviously, because it's about my lifestyle changes and how I want to change my life, it's a lot of those obstacles are to do with my own flaws and things that get in the way of my success, or how I define my success. And so that requires a lot of thinking as well, just like, how can I unpick the parts of me that get in the way of what I want to do, but don't kind of pull apart the core things that make me, you know? And that's not always easy, because sometimes it's the core things that make you that get in the way of you. You know, that they're not always constructive habits, they're not always positive things. And I guess that reality as well is sometimes disconcerting. But hey, I mean, I'm on that little red notebook you saw at the start of the episode is where I write down what I tell myself to do each day. I'm starting to eat a bit better and do exercise again. I feel good. I'm doing like stretches, and I'm improving my flexibility, and I'm working on something right now that I'm hoping I can show soon. And more than anything, it feels good to invest in myself, you know. It feels good to do this knowing that I can be more, I can do more, and those aren't always the same thing. Which is something, again, that I spoke about with Jamal last episode. Oh yeah, by the way, if you've made it this far into the video, please subscribe. Any amount of subscribers does contribute a lot to the channel, and yeah, I'm hoping to be able to put out more content at a more regular rate. Hence me doing this in my garden. But yeah, so right now I'm putting myself in gear. I'm just getting things moving, you know. You're not always going to meet every single target every single day. Sometimes there's something you miss out, and rather than just punishing myself for not hitting every single thing on my to-do list, I think, how can I structure my day so that I do that? Or what did I do in the time that I could have done that, you know? A couple of days ago, I wanted to do a bit of meditation. I got to the end of the day, I realised I hadn't done that, and I was too tired. I just went to sleep, and, you know, I could have just replaced 15 minutes of browsing the internet with that, or just, you know, something like that. It's not always about doing everything right at once. It's about making that progress. It's about making effort towards progress more than anything, and hopefully just with a bit more hard work, dedicated thinking, critical review of what I'm doing, I can look backwards after a few weeks of this and feel like I've done something good. So yeah, on to the next segment. So I've had this idea that I quite like about combining all the clicks that I do to sync the audio for something, but I don't know what I'd use it for. Like, yeah, sometimes I think of things that don't really apply to ideas I might actually use in real life, you know. But hey, sometimes you have ideas and they turn out alright, so you've always got to just at least let them ruminate, at least give them life to breathe or whatever. But yeah, I guess I should probably continue with the theme of the last segment that I did, which was the whole thing of ponerse en marcha, getting yourself into gear. And the truth is that sometimes it's harder to get yourself in gear than other days, you know? Like, I've had this working metaphor for a while in my head. I guess I should share it, but like the way I view gratitude in life. Sometimes I view gratitude like you wake up and you walk downstairs and there's a perfectly well-made, fully cooked meal in front of you already, you know? And sometimes that gratitude is more like walking into the kitchen and there's ingredients, but you got to do the work a bit, you know. You got to combine those ingredients and make yourself a bit happy yourself. And sometimes it feels like there's no ingredients in the kitchen and you don't even know where the shops are, and you're just hungry and you think, how could I ever be satisfied? And I guess a bit of wonderment I have, a bit of questioning I have for life in general is what decides which of those days you're going to have, you know. Is it some sort of neurochemical effect that just kind of resulted in you feeling the way you do when you wake up? Is it Is it some sort of psychological, development that you've had, or can it be represented through some sort of story, or seen through some kind of lens? Maybe it can be seen through a religious lens or a philosophical lens, and I guess for me it's always a mystery. And I guess more importantly, or maybe not more importantly, but just another question that might apply is, no matter what the reason is for which of those you have, what are you going to do about it? I guess sometimes I get stuck in the thinking about why, and the thinking about what I have, rather than just thinking about how I can make do, And yeah, so normally I use that metaphor for gratitude, but sometimes it applies to just general action in life, what motivates you to do what you do. And it is quite important, the whole thing about discipline being put above motivation in certain senses, that you've got to be disciplined so that you do the work no matter what your motivation is. But your motivation is the whole reason why you're doing it. What is the point of discipline if you've got nothing to be motivated for? Obviously the discipline will help you get to that goal, but without the motivation you won't know your goal. So that's just something I think about. And so yeah, today for me has been one of those tougher days where I just I go through the motions. I did my daily exercise. That's kind of pretty much it. I just kind of sat around. I've started rewatching a cartoon that I like, and sometimes it's just that. Sometimes you're just rolling. And I made the effort to come out here today. If anybody can guess where this is, feel free to comment, because I need that good engagement. Please feed the algorithm. But yeah, so I made the effort to walk out here. And I've been doing this thing where I've been listening to full albums, because I've never really done it in my life. I've been more of a select certain songs and just make them into a playlist guy. But I listen to this podcast called the NFR podcast, which is about hip hop music, and I think it's a really good quality podcast. Their level of analysis and discussion is really well thought out, and they always kept talking about how important the Nas Illmatic album was. So I decided, fuck it, I'm gonna just download it, go on a walk, and just listen to it. And I thought it was pretty good. I mean, I can see how, with my lack of historical and cultural context, it doesn't quite hit the same as it might do for somebody who grew up in that era with a similar culture, or even just kind of with the understanding of that culture with a different perspective. But hey, I just liked it as an experience, and so I've done it with more. I've done it with some Mobb Deep albums that I like, and now I've started to roll out into some different stuff. So also thank you, Alfie, for putting me onto a band called Car Seat Headrest. Yeah, that's the name. But I've been listening to one of their albums today, and it's pretty good. I quite like it. Which is strange, because one of the most important pieces of music or collections of music is whatever people say that's what I'm not, which is the Arctic Monkeys' first album. That's if there was a Mount Rushmore of music for me, that'd be all four, Well, that one and Favourite Worst Nightmare. But I guess it's kind of weird that it took me so long to come around to the idea of listening to a whole album at once. That's life sometimes. And yeah, there was something else I wanted to speak about as well, I guess, now that I'm here, while we're on the subject, is how there are so many little snippets, little sentences or phrases or things that people say that affect me so majorly. I remember one time it was some sort of social gathering that I had with my friends, and I took a couple of photos and I sent them to a couple of my friends, and one of them, it was just nice to kind of see, these are nice photos, we had such a nice time together, kind of stuff. And one of the responses I got from a friend was, they just sent a message back saying, selecting the moments. And I'm sure for them it was kind of just kind of off the cuff, but for me, I've not been able to unpick that from my head once. Every single day since, I think about that phrase, selecting the moments. Because I feel that's, in one way or another, that's what I'm here to do. Not here directly here, I mean metaphysically here, I guess. Or about as metaphysical as you can get with my set of beliefs. And just recently I was up at Purdown, up on the boxes where I film like some stuff, and a bunch of lads just kind of were sitting around me. They decided that was a good place to smoke a joint, and I was like, I can't really begrudge you for that. And they kind of got to speaking to me about what I was doing, and I kind of mentioned how I'm a lazy person and not necessarily unmotivated, but very undisciplined, and that if I just kind of make these videos and try and do something and say something about where I am, maybe it'll help me move forward. And one of them, he said, just speaking into existence. And it was not like he didn't put any thought into it, but that's been rattling around my brain as well, speaking into existence. Something to think about. And I guess the funny thing is that those people will probably never know how important those phrases are to me, and yet they hold so much significance. And so maybe I can use that as a lesson to like inform the gravity of what I do and the importance of what I say, because there are things that you might just think aren't that important, or won't have an effect on people, and it's true. Like, I've forgotten more in my life than I've forgotten already a lifetime full of experiences, and that's just, you can't remember everything, but that's just kind of, I guess, selecting the moments.
Stop and duck, knock and rust open for cigarettes. In it says smoke, out it says no. Cloud of the road that I play, so I know by their intimate business and building to settle. The bitches at home want a toke, but I want a loan or a job or something to hold. It isn't the sheets that I folded this morning while sleep in the cold. I might turn up this girth, turn up my words, turn up in hustlers as grumpy as birth. Billy the kid, I'm a cuss on the earth. I will be gold with horns in the fur. All of the rumors you heard, but I'm twirling the funnel, cause Jammies was spitting his verse. I'm a bitch, I'm a bird, yeah. I'm expected to burn. Run at the meat and my steamer is broke. Fuck the oblique, I'm peak of the soul. Peace never know what's about to occur, but my zen getting rolled at a turn of your words.